interesting topic because most of the topics are related to chemotherapy molecules uh, and the new recommendations like that. And a program on supportive care and how to take care of the anemic patients is really interesting. So, good evening, friends and colleagues. The topic today is management of chemotherapy-induced anemia challenges and options. Is it audible?
Yes, audible, sir.
So, anemia is defined as decreased number of red blood cells, resulting in decrease in the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, and it is prevalent in around 30 to 90% of the patients. And incidence of anemia varies according to the tumor and the treatment regimen. So you can see that the GI cancers are more common to have anemia, like the colorectal cancers and the gastric cancers. And other cancers are also very much a causative factor for anemia. And it depends on the treatment regimen we are using also. You can see from the blocks that cisplatin and carboplatin induce or main culprit of cisplatin and carboplatin are main culprit of chemotherapy induced anemia, and other myelotoxic drugs like methotrexate, etoposide are also very common to have bone marrow suppression and hence causing anemia. Etiology of pathophysiology of anemia can be categorized as mainly three, as we all know: decreased production of functional RBCs, increased destruction, and blood loss from the tumor site or otherwise. You can see from this slide that cancer causes activation of monocytes and T cells, and the interferon gamma, TNF alpha, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6. These are the cytokines released, and it directly inhibits erythropoietin release and decrease erythropoietic stimulation, and hence anemia. And on the other side, it increases the hepatic synthesis of hepcidin. Increased hepcidin inhibits iron release from the reticuloendothelial system, and it augments hemophagocytosis also. That means eating up of RBC cells, and it inhibits the erythroid proliferation directly also. So the cancer induced anemia is multifactorial, and mainly 3-4 mechanism it causes anemia. And this also talks about the same. Cancer causes inflammation. Inflammation causes cytokine release, interleukin 6, TNF alpha, interleukin beta, interferon gamma. Then increase hepcidin release. Hepcidin causes decreased GI absorption of the iron, causing iron restricted hemopoiesis. Iron is required for the heme synthesis, and hepcidin decreases access to iron storage in reticular endothelial cells also, and causing decreased iron stores. And cytokines causes decreased EPO levels. And another mechanism is marrow infiltration by the cancer cells, and direct bone marrow infiltration of the cancer cells causes reduced bone marrow erythropoietic synthesis and reduced response to EPO and ESAs. And myelosuppressive treatment causes reduce the marrow erythropoiesis, and nutritional causes related to cancer causes decreased absorption and decreased level of B12 and folate, and severe protein calorie malnutrition also causing anemia. So like these 3-4 mechanism, it causes cancer induced anemia. This is also a slide about the pathophysiology. Erythropoietin increases RBC production in 3 ways. It promotes the pro-normoblast production. It shortens the transition time through the normoblast stage and promotes early release of the reticulocytes. And low blood oxygen to the liver and kidney causes low erythropoietin in cancers, and so in cancer the erythropoietin level may be decreased and leading to reduced oxygen carrying capacity. But if you are seeing this is the life cycle of how the erythropoietin stimulates the red bone marrow. It increases the number of red cells and it increases the oxygen carrying capacity. And what happens in cancer is that cancer induced anemia can cause low erythropoietin levels. This shows this is not about the cancer induced anemia. This is a slide about the causes of anemia, mainly infection, iron deficiency, inflammation, blood loss, surgery, vitamin B12 deficiency, erythropoietin deficiency, malignancies and chemotherapy, medications and malnutrition, and alcoholism. Coming back to chemotherapy induced anemia, the most common symptom you are seeing in OPD is fatigue among the patients, and additional symptoms are headache, dizziness, chest pain, shortness of breath, GI complaints, and pallor. And what about the symptoms of anemia? It can cause yellowing of the eyes if there is a hemolysis and jaundice. It causes pallor of the skin, coldness and yellowing. It causes shortness of breath because of the hypoxia. It causes muscular weakness. Change in the stool color may be there due to blood loss. And hypersplenism can cause splenic enlargement. Hyperdynamic circulation can cause palpitation, increased heart rate, chest pain, angina, and even it can cause heart attack and MI. And blood vessels, low BP, and what are the central side effects are fatigue, dizziness, and fainting. And the impact, sociological impact, is mainly patient discomfort, compromised treatment efficacy, workday loss, financial cost, hospitalization, and even death. So chemotherapy delay and dose reduction is common in patients who develop anemia. Anemia, hemoglobin less than SB increase from 5 to 22 in chemotherapy patients in an Italian study, mainly breast and colorectal cancer. Chemotherapy with anemia had significantly increased odds of experiencing chemotherapy dose delays and dose reduction compared to those with hemoglobin greater than 10 gram percentage. So anemia causes chemotherapy dose delays, dose reduction compared to non-anemic patients. And there is a good correlation between the low hemoglobin and impaired performance status. And here WHO performance status 3 and 4 are more common in anemic patients. Why do you need to treat the anemia? Anemia is associated with poor prognosis in cancer patients, and the ability to complete the chemotherapy regimens at the correct dose might be compromised, and a significant association between the chemotherapy and dose delays and dose reduction can be there. Quality of life becomes impaired with the low hemoglobin levels. And tumor hypoxia, anemia associated with poor prognosis for many cancers, head and neck, prostate, bladder, lung, cervical, and lymphoma. Possible confounding factors may be there. Poor patients with advanced cancers may be anemic at diagnosis and have poor survival. And hypoxic tumors due to anemia may be resistant to radiation and chemotherapy. Anemia is diagnosed in the OPD by low hemoglobin, low RBC count, low hematocrit values, that is PCV. How do you evaluate an anemic patient? Anemia is defined as hemoglobin less than 11 gram percentage or more than 2 grams below the baseline. CBC should be done, and you have to see the reticulocyte count and MCV, and hemorrhage, hemolysis, renal dysfunction, radiation-induced myelosuppression may be the possible causes, and anemia can be unknown cause of unknown etiology also. Anemia of chronic inflammation, anemia caused by myelosuppressive chemotherapy. So what is the algorithm for anemia? You can broadly see that hemoglobin abnormal, male less than 13. This is for the pre-operative, not the chemotherapy-induced anemia. It roughly can be seen as a broad guideline how to work up a case of anemia. Male less than 13 gram percentage, female less than 12 gram percentage. You have to see the MCV first. MCV 80 to 100, normocytic. Normocytic, you have to see the creatinine because anemia of CRF, that is chronic renal failure, may be a cause. So if the creatinine is more than 1.3, you have to see see a nephrologist to work up for chronic renal disease. You have to see MCV. If it is less than 80, then iron deficiency anemia is the commonest cause. Then you have to see the ferritin level, transferrin saturation less than 20. You have to give taken as iron deficiency anemia, iron supplementation, and GI evaluation by upper GI scopy and a colonoscopy is also needed. MCV more than 100, megaloblastic anemia, serum iron and serum B12 and folate deficiency should be looked for, then corrected accordingly. Increase reticulocyte count, then possible causes are external blood loss, hemolysis like hemolytic anemia, G6PD deficiency, Gilbert's, and other causes can be there. Normocytic and normal reticulocyte count, anemia of chronic disease might be a cause. So this way you have to investigate the anemia. The DDs, like we mentioned here in the previous slide, can be found out by the MCV and the reticulocyte count. MCV is expressed as femtoliters, abbreviated as FL. 80 to 100 femtoliters is normocytic, like we mentioned in the previous slide. Hemorrhage, hemolysis, bone marrow failure, anemia of chronic inflammation and renal insufficiency can be there. Microcytic, iron deficiency anemia is the commonest cause. Thalassemia, anemia of chronic disease can also be there. Macrocytic, we have explained, B12 and folate deficiency, and alcoholism can also be there as a cause of megaloblastic anemia. Reticulocytes count, low reticulocyte count, decrease RBC production in the bone marrow, like bone marrow suppression due to aplastic anemia, like that. So here we are subdividing the anemia for the students like a ready reckoner. Hemoglobin, MCV and reticulocyte count all low. Then serum iron, you have to see if it is also low, iron deficiency anemia. Ferritin is low in iron deficiency anemia. Hemolytic anemia, what is the picture? Hemoglobin and MCV are low, but reticulocytes count will be very high. What are the commonest cause of hemolytic anemia? Autoimmune disorders. You have to see the autoimmune antibodies, G6PD deficiency, Gilbert's can be there as a hereditary hemolytic anemias, and mother-baby incompatibility, and can also be cause of hemolysis, and in this case direct Coombs test can be done. What about the B12 deficiency? B12 deficiency, hemoglobin or reticulocyte count low, MCV high. Then you have to see the B12 level and folate level and treat accordingly. Aplastic anemia, hemoglobin and reticulocyte count low, in fact maybe very low, MCV normal, and in those cases you have to do a bone marrow and bone biopsy. You have to see for viral hepatitis, HIV, etc., and exposure to toxic marrow, toxic chemicals to the marrow like arsenic and benzene should be done. And cancer chemotherapy in palliative cancer patient who has taken 4, 5, 6 lines of chemotherapy can also cause bone marrow suppression and aplastic anemia. And you can, so coming back to chemotherapy induced anemia, now we talk about only about the chemotherapy induced anemia. So traditionally chemotherapy induced anemia, without no specific intervention, including blood transfusion is needed unless a hemoglobin concentration decline to a low level that is defined as less than 7 gram percentage, or if it is more than 7 gram percentage, you have to have symptoms. So any person who is having a hemoglobin of less than 7 gram percentage taking chemotherapy even without symptoms is a chemotherapy induced anemia. So if it is more than 7 gram percentage, patients having symptoms of anemia like shortness of breath, chest pain or palpitation, they are also defined as chemotherapy induced anemia. Chemotherapy induced anemia but not reaching this cutoff limit is without symptoms is not considered important. And emerging data indicates that CIA that did not reach transfusion trigger still causes fatigue, has got a adverse impact on the quality of life. So if it is more than 7 gram per percent, if they are having symptoms, then again it has to be treated. And incidence of fatigue is more in patients receiving chemotherapy, that is coming to almost 90% of the patients. So symptoms mimicking fatigue that may be secondary to psychological and emotional causes, including depression, breakdown of interpersonal relationship, and systemic symptoms including nausea, vomiting, cardiac, renal, hepatocellular dysfunction should be ruled out. So this fatigue, when we are evaluating this fatigue in CIA, emotional causes like depression, psychological issues should be ruled out. And fatigue can be due to LV dysfunction, chronic renal disease, hepatic insufficiency. They also have to be ruled out. What is the WHO classification of CIA? I am not talking about the NCI, otherwise you will be confused. It is divided into 4 grades. Grade 1 is above 11 gram percentage. Grade 1, grade 0, and grade 1 is 9.5 to 10.9. Grade 2, that is moderate, 8 and 9.4. Grade 3 is serious, 6.5 to 7.9. And grade 4, life-threatening, that is less than 6.5. And difficulties in management of CIA includes clinical heterogeneity, multifactorial etiology of anemia. Like we mentioned, anemia can be due to the agents used. It can be due to associated malnutrition, associated protein energy malnutrition, associated megaloblastic anemia, associated alcoholism, like that. And when you are evaluating symptoms, the tools of fatigue, quality of life, and appropriate time to intervention, and side effects associated with the intervention should be taken into account. How do you manage chemotherapy-induced anemia? We all know blood transfusion is an important agent, and ESAs, erythropoietin stimulating agents. In that, erythropoietin alpha and RB-poietin alpha are the agents we are using. What about the risks of RBC transfusion? RBC transfusion is rapidly correcting the anemia, but repeated transfusion can cause hemolysis, febrile episodes, non-hemolytic lung injury, that is TRALI, and transfusion associated circulation overload can be there, that is volume overload. It can transmit HIV and HBsA, hepatitis B and C. Bacterial contamination can cause sepsis. It can cause prolonged transfusion hemochromatosis, or iron overload can be there, and it can cause thrombotic episodes also. It's a very serious and life-taking events. It can be there rarely, and possible decreased survival can be there. That is debatable. Benefits: rapid correction, rapid improvement of symptoms. If you see the timeline, in the 80s, gene for erythropoietin cloned, erythropoietin genetically engineered. In the 90s, erythropoietin alpha in the cancer-related anemia first published, and in the 2000s, erythropoietin alpha approved for chemotherapy-induced anemia. Once weekly dosing came into existence, and in the 2010s, darbepoetin was introduced to treat CIA. And ESAs, that erythropoietin stimulating agents, are similar to endogenous erythropoietin which is found in the body. And advantages are compared to transfusion are sustained correction of hemoglobin, convenient, removes the risk of infection, and reduces the transfusion needs. How they act, ESAs, it stimulates the erythropoiesis by the same mechanism. It stimulates erythropoietic stem cells into BFU and CFU, that is burst forming unit erythroid, colony forming unit erythroid, erythroblast and reticulocytes, erythrocytes. So the blue colored block is stimulated by erythropoietin. There are two agents mainly, erythropoietin alpha and beta are available in India. Abroad there are 4, theta and zeta also. Long acting ESAs, that is darbepoetin alpha. Darbepoetin is mainly long acting, more than 74 hours action, and there are 2 dose frequencies for darbepoetin, that is weekly, 2 weekly and 3 weekly. And abroad Iprex and Neorecomen are available as the originals, and in India so many generics are available for the short acting variety, and darbepoetin Aranesep. Here so many generics are available. And this slide is very important for the students. There are mainly 3 guidelines are there: NCCN guidelines, ESMO guidelines, and combined ASH-ASCO guideline. So ESMO and ASH and ASCO guidelines are very exhaustive descriptions are there. One thing you have to accept is that in curative intent malignancies, ESA is not recommended. That is the bottom line. Patient with taking neoadjuvant, adjuvant, and definitive chemotherapy like leukemias and all, where curative intent is the objective, erythropoietin and darbepoetin are not recommended. What about the palliative CT? It should be in palliative CT patients, CIA, facing CIA, here ESA therapy is indicated. It should be under the REMS guidelines, risk evaluation management guideline, using the lowest dose necessary to avoid transfusion. Here both the NCCN, ESMO, then ESA should be considered. ASH and ASCO guidelines initiate of ESA therapy with informed consent. And here also RBC transfusion is an option. What about cancer-induced anemia without taking chemotherapy? Here also it is not recommended. So the light colored block, taking chemotherapy patients, for palliative chemotherapy patients, here ESA and darbepoetin should be used. And how to use the darbepoetin or erythropoietin? Less than 10 gram percentage or a reduction here 2 gram percentage you have to start. What should be your aim? Your aim should be around 11. That is 10 to 12 hemoglobin should be your target once you reach the target, you have to stop. You should not go beyond the objective we have in mind. That is, what is the objective? That is around 10 to 12 gram percentage. And unstable patient, it is never used. In unstable patient, RBC transfusion is recommended. But IV transfusion, IV iron treatment, if there is a iron deficiency, parenteral iron, oral treatment takes time. So parenteral iron is the preferred mechanism, preferred agent in all the guidelines. And functional iron deficiency is broadly recommended in NCCN guidelines. Ferritin level 500 to 800. In NCCN, there is a broad ferritin level. They are very much aggressive. So if it is less than 500 to 800 nanogram per ml, or transferrin saturation less than 20%. So 20%. So if the transferrin saturation less than 20%, ferritin level less than 500 to 800 nanogram, you can use as per the NCCN guidelines. What about the ESMO? ESMO, the ferritin level is much more lower. Ferritin level less than 100 nanogram percentage, and signs of iron deficiency means MCV low hemoglobin, and transferrin saturation here also it is less than 20%. And ASH and ASCO guidelines, they have not given a cutoff level, but if microcytic anemia with signs of iron deficiency, you can use. Here, if you are seeing all the guidelines, it will be confusing for you. So you choose your guideline and stick to that. ESMO guideline, hemoglobin, initial for ESA treatment, hemoglobin 9 to 11, you can say that 9 to 10, you can start using that, and the target level is around 12. And I am using ASCO ASH guideline. In my judgment, here hemoglobin level is defined as less than 10 gram to start ESA treatment. And what is your target? Target is to maintain hemoglobin near 12, and as per the ESMO, it is between 11 and 13, that is above 11 you can stop. In the ASCO guideline it's around 12. In the NCCN guideline it's again 11, between 10 and 11. And here further few slides are based on clinical experience of the ESAs. So here darbepoetin administration in NHL chemotherapy induced anemia, R-CHOP. Here I am not advocating for R-CHOP therapy, darbepoetin for R-CHOP therapy, because it is a curative malignancy, most of the lymphomas. Only very rare palliative patients you can use for R-CHOP. Otherwise, as we have seen in this study, in this presentation, in curative intent chemotherapy, darbepoetin or erythropoietin should not be used. Why it should not be used? Because meta-analysis, you can see from the literature that the meta-analysis of erythropoietic agents, it increases the recurrence rate as well as the OS if you are using erythropoietin stimulating agents. It is currently very debatable, but because of this meta-analysis, we are not using in curative treatment. So it has got a anti-chemotherapy it can be their anti-chemotherapy effect. So in curative intent, we are not using EPS, erythropoietin, and short-acting as well as darbepoetin. In this study, we have seen that 60% of the patients had chemotherapy concentration in the guideline recommended range, and mean duration of darbepoetin exposure was 8.8 plus minus 6.9 weeks, and 23% of the patients have received chemotherapy and darbepoetin on the same day, and 89 patients have got hemoglobin concentration less than 10 gram percentage at darbepoetin initiation and still receiving darbepoetin 5 weeks later, and 92% of the patients reached the target hemoglobin level between week 5 and at the end of treatment. This is another study in once in 3 weeks for the treatment of anemia in elderly patients with non-myeloid tumors receiving chemotherapy. And here the patients were elderly with non-myeloid tumors receiving chemotherapy. Elderly is defined as greater than or equal to 65 years. Here the longest acting darbepoetin, that is 500 microgram every 3 weeks, was used. And the results were, the median age was 73.4 years, and the median baseline hemoglobin level was 10 grams, and darbepoetin was administered for a median of 8 weeks. And 69.7%, that is roughly 70% of the patients received a hemopoietic response. So success rate is around 70%. And functional assessment, there was a fatigue improvement, and 0.7% of the patient received experienced cutaneous rash. That is only 1% among a total of 102 patients. So to conclude this study, it was well tolerated, and chemotherapy, and it is an effective therapy for the treatment of chemotherapy-induced anemia in elderly patients. This is another study. This is kind of what we are using in our day-to-day practice. Hemoglobin less than 10 gram percentage is defined as chemotherapy-induced anemia in this study. So it is it's a database study of kind of meta-analysis. Here also, what we are seeing in the results is a comparative analysis of 4 major studies, 2 in lung cancer, 1 in lymphoproliferative disease, and 1 in non-myeloid malignancy. This comparative analysis, median time to greater than 1 gram or greater than 2 gram increase were 43 or 78 days respectively, and transfusions were less common in the patient who received darbepoetin. Additional 2 dose finding studies did not change the findings of the main comparative analysis. It is more effective. This database study of 4 major studies is a pooling study, found that DA, that is darbepoetin, is more effective than placebo in increasing the hemoglobin levels and reducing the need for transfusion when the hemoglobin level is less than or equal to 10 gram percentage. This is a very important study. Here, this is a MDS patient we studied, that is hemoglobin with low intermediate 1 risk of MDS with hemoglobin less than 10 gram percentage and low transfusion burden, and serum erythropoietin level less than 500 MIU per ml were introduced. 147 patients were randomized, and again the 3 weekly regimen of darbepoetin alpha, that is 500 microgram every 3 weeks were used. It's a 2:1 randomized study. To double the patient received darbepoetin compared to the placebo, and after 48 weeks at 48 weeks the patient received a 3 weekly they have decreased the compressed the duration from 3 weekly to 2 weekly from week 31st onwards, and it was the patient were followed up to 84 weeks, and what they found out was transfusion incidents were very low in darbepoetin versus placebo, that is 36.1% of the patients in the darbepoetin arm received transfusion compared to 59.2% in the placebo arm. Erythroid response increased significantly in the darbepoetin arm versus the placebo arm, and in the 48-week open label period, dose frequency increased from 3 weekly to 2 weekly in 81% of the patients. This was associated with a higher response. So what this study is showing, that at the end of 48 weeks, if you are analyzing the patients, if the your response is inadequate, you can increase the frequency from 3 weekly to 2 weekly of 500 microgram darbepoetin pre-filled syringes. So 24 weeks of darbepoetin alpha significantly reduce the transfusion, increase the erythroid response in lower risk transfusion dependent MDS. This study I'm not covering because it's related with the non-malignant condition, chronic renal failure. So 3 or 4 major studies we have covered. These studies, chemotherapy induced anemia, and the other one for MDS. These are practice changing. So in palliative patients and low risk MDS, you can use darbepoetin if they are on chemotherapy. So that concludes today's presentation. It's a very exhaustive presentation about 50 plus slides on darbepoetin. So thank you for listening.
So thank you, sir.